Hello everyone, welcome to this session. We're still discussing about the reflex action. As for in a previous video, we saw the concept of the reflex action. Then we briefly discussed there about the simple reflex act. So today, let's see the various types of the reflex action. The reflex action can either be simple or conditioned reflex. So these two are the types or the kinds of this reflex action. Now, starting with the first one, that is the simple reflex action. A simple reflex action, we saw the meaning of it in our previous video. An example of a simple reflex action found in humans is the pupil reflex, whereby the pupil of the eye gets larger in dim light and smaller in bright light. So that kind of action of how the pupil adjusts according to the kinds of light is an example of a simple reflex action. Now the eye needs to control the amount of light entering in it in different light conditions. In dim conditions, more light is allowed to enter so that a clear image can be formed on the retina, while in bright conditions, less light is allowed to enter so that the retina is not damaged. So this is an example of a simple reflex action. Now, a conditioned reflex action is some kind of action or feeling that is learned in response to a specific situation or stimulus. A Russian scientist called Pavlov trained dogs to expect food whenever he rang a bell. Now, the dogs eventually produced saliva when they heard the bell ring. Now, the dogs salivates naturally when they are given food. Now, what this scientist did, uh, Paul, this Pavlov rang a bell every time the dogs were to be given food. Now, after much repetition, after some time, the dogs salivated when they heard the bell ringing, even when there was no food. Now, this is an example of a conditioned reflex. It's a kind of a reflex action that is produced under certain kind of specific situation that is learned in response to such kind of a situation. So that's how this conditioned reflex action works. Now, the dogs were conditioned to salivate when the bell rang. A ringing bell simply does not normally cause salivation in dogs. However, when the ringing bell becomes a secondary stimulus, it does cause salivation even though the food will not be able to eat the food we will not be able to eat the bear as food or simply even when the food is not provided. So this kind of a ringing of a bell is a kind of a second stimulus that is produced just to enable that salvation of the dog expecting to get the food. So this is what we call a conditioned reflex. In a conditioned reflex, the final response, that is the salvation, has no direct connection with the stimulus, that is the ringing of the bell. It simply has an indirect connection with it, so that's how this conditioned reflex action looks like. Now, another example of a conditioned, or we can simply say learned reflex action, is when the driver comes across a hurdle on the road, such as a ditch or a pedestrian. In such circumstances, the first thing the driver will do is to move his leg towards the brake pedal to apply the brakes. He has learned to do this action for a long time that he finds himself applying the brake in any such kind of circumstances. So that's the other example of this conditioned or learned reflex action. Now let's see the difference between the simple reflex action and the conditioned reflex action. In terms of the conditioned reflex action, the conditioned reflex action, it involves more than one stimuli, as we've seen before within the examples that the ringing of the bell, taken from that example of the scientist that provided some kind of a secondary stimulus, that is the ringing of the bell, just to stimulate the salivation. That is basically when the dogs they see the food. So the conditioned reflex, it has to involve more than one stimuli. So it has to involve various stimulus just to get this kind of a reflex action. In terms of a simple reflex action, it requires only one stimulus just to obtain it. The second difference is that in conditioned reflex action, it involves the brain. So the brain is the one that carries out this conditioned reflex action, while the simple reflex action is mostly involved with the spinal cord. The third one, that the conditioned reflex action, it is a learned action. So the conditioned reflex action is simply obtained as by learning through or just by experiencing this kind of stimuli for this kind of stimulus for some kind of a time. So the individual just learns them. While the simple reflex action, it has an immediate action. This means that there's no time to learn. And last but not least, in conditional reflex action, it is required in one's life, uh, whereby in his in simple reflex action, it is inborn. So conditioned reflex action, it is acquired or it is just say obtained in one's life. It cannot be originally obtained naturally, but the simple reflex is inborn. This means that it is natural instinct of an organism. Let's see about the modifying this stimulus. In some circumstances, the brain can modify, I mean, modifying the responses of the various stimulus. In some these circumstances, the brain can modify a reflex response. It does this by sending an impulse along a motor neuron of the reflex arc. Now, this is the what it enables to hold a hot liner plate when normally we could not hold it or we could just drop it. So this is all about the modifying the response to various stimulus. This is kind of the conditioned action whereby the brain just adjusts or it modifies the response to the given kind of situation. Take an example, as we've seen that holding a hot plate just for a while normally you would drop it, but the brain just gives kind of a modifying substance just to hold that kind of a plate. So that's all I have for this session. I hope it's clear, everyone. We've discussed the types of the reflex actions. We've seen that there is simple reflex action and the this modified uh reflex action. I hope that's all clear, and thank you.